So continuing our media availabilities in advance of the Folds of Honor Quick Trip 500, we're joined now by the defending race winner, driver of the number 2 Auto Trader Ford for Team Penske, Brad Keselowski. Brad, thanks for going the extra mile to get here today. And
thank you. Can we all agree this is the best media center? I mean, look at the food lineup. I'm inspired to win the race just for the food and post race. I don't know. There's somebody in here responsible for that. Thank you. Save me a chocolate donut for after the race if we win, or maybe a taquito.
We'll keep both.
Taquito, okay. All right.
We'll keep both for you. Thoughts about
I get pumped. I don't usually come to the media center pre-race. This was my inspiration, was to see the Quick Trip food.
Excellent. We'll see if we can get that at a few more of our facilities. So, your thoughts heading into this weekend? Obviously, defending race winner. You've had a lot of success here over the years. Just tell us a little bit about where your head is now.
Well, yeah, obviously last year, when you win, that's a lot of fun, and I'm glad we won and they didn't repave the racetrack. That's cool. Usually that's how that goes. You win, you finally figure a place out. I'm like, all right, let's reconfigure it. So that didn't happen, which I'm happy about. But I'm not really entirely sure what to expect. I was doing a spot yesterday on the Fox show there, Race Hub, and somehow I ended up next to Chad Knaus, and we were talking about, Atlanta expectations, and we both looked at each other and were like, I have no idea what to expect. We could come here and be the best car. We could come here and run 15th all day. I don't know. I could see it going either of the two ways. So with respect to that, there's a lot of reasons for it. New rules, first race on a mile and a half. Atlanta's kind of its own animal in a lot of different ways of the mile and a halves because of the tire wear requires unique car setups. So it's really a hard track to really have a great answer for your level of competitiveness entering the weekend, even if you had been in the middle of the season, and we're not. We're at the start of the season. So, it's a bit of an open weekend for a team to come and take and run with, and hopefully we can do that like we did last year.
Excellent. We're going to go open it up to questions. We'll start with Jeff and then go to Mike.
Jeff Gluck from jeffgluck.com. So
you're in the middle this week.
Yeah, I moved back. Yeah,
that's good. We're glad to have you back.
Thanks. So this new inspection system, I know not necessarily the Hawkeye, but whatever, the big black tent. How much do you think that it's going to cause problems for teams today? What's your prediction for who will push it? I mean, do you think there's going to be a big long line like we saw the last couple years in Atlanta? I
don't know. It's my understanding that it has a knob on it for how sensitive it can be. So. And it really depends on where the knob is set. I don't know it articulately to really define how all that works. It's got a special name. I don't even know the special name for it. So I need an education on that one. But I don't know. That's part of the wild card unique factor this weekend that I don't think we can give a great answer on.
It's the optical scanning station that's going to work great.
Optical scanning station, OSS. Like
optical
a military term. Oh, okay.
We'll go to Mike and then to Bob.
Isn't that the CIA before it was the CIA? Weren't they the OSS?
Sure was.
Where's Bob at? Were you next, Bob? Oh, no, it was Mike's next. Okay, sorry.
Mike Emery, USA Today. Racing at Daytona was a little bit crazy. It seemed like it was kind of anything goes, except maybe you couldn't go below the yellow line to pass. Is that a good thing? Is that can we look for more of that craziness at Talladega?
Yeah, I haven't spent a lot of time kind of looking in the rearview mirror at Daytona because I can't change it. I can't change the results, can't change what happened. But, the way play racing generally works is, we have about 6 races there a year. 2 at Talladega and 4 at Daytona if you count the duels and the clash and whatnot. And it seems like that there's ebbs and flows to it. You get 3 or 4 in a row that are just complete crash fests with no rhythm or rhyme to it. And then you'll get 3 or 4 in a row that are not crash fests where there's, a rhythm and flow and all those great things to it. And we can kind of make something happen. And, the Clash felt like it had good rhythm and we could kind of work through it and make things happen. And by the time we got to the 500, it was just, a free for all. And there was no real rhyme or reason to why that race was what it was. It just was kind of a crash fest. So, I kind of approach those weekends knowing that any race can be any one of those. And try not to let it break your heart when it is one of those, because it's certainly frustrating. But I looking back at Daytona, I was happy to at least win one of the races there, and it's probably pretty unrealistic to expect anyone to be able to do to sweep that. But we would have loved to, and it didn't come together. So that's just the way it kind of is. But hate to see all the torn up race cars and all that stuff. You guys already know that, but it is what it is. You just kind of move on and come to Atlanta.
We're going to go to the middle to Bob, then we'll go to Matt and Nate.
Bob Pockris, ESPN. You haven't ruled out owning a Cup team at one point in your life. Does it matter to you when you see no open cars here and just the 36 charter cars?
Yeah, I don't know if I've kind of made my opinion up on that, Bob. There are some parts of me that thinks it's awful, and some parts of me that think, well, it kind of makes sense. And I think that we were in a spot before in the sport where it didn't really make sense 10 years ago when we sent home guys with great sponsors and they didn't get to race. I thought that was terrible. And then on the other side, it doesn't make perfect sense to me to not have a full field. So I don't know. Both sides of it, I guess I can completely understand, but I don't know if there's a right answer for this sport. I know that we are lucky enough to have second and third tier series that provide an opportunity for anyone to show up and have a place to race, and you would prefer to see those series utilized. But I do feel like the NASCAR racing is at its best at 40-car fields.
We'll go over here to the left to Matt, and then we'll go back to the middle to Nate and Reed.
Matt Weaver, AutoWeek.com. When it comes time, inevitably, to either repave or resurface Atlanta, how involved do you expect the Drivers' Council to be, whether it's in terms of whether it's a repave, whether it's a resurface, or what kind of grinding to use? Just how involved do you expect the guys to be in determining that?
What do I expect? I don't expect a lot. What we would probably like would be a lot. This is, of all the tracks we go to, this would probably be the hardest track to repave because of its design, its layout. The car configuration as it stands today just doesn't really lend itself to what this track would look like if it was repaved. But it does lend itself to where it is in this current configuration of worn out, really bumpy asphalt. This car fits this track pretty well. And I'm kind of stealing this from Kevin Harvick. I don't think it's as simple as just repaving Atlanta. I think it's a much more complicated equation than just putting down new asphalt in order to ensure the high quality of racing that this track has right now.
In what way?
What makes it so complicated to just repave it? Yeah. Because right now you have some dynamic features to the track with the bumps, the worn out pavement, this track has just so many unique features that would be erased if you just repaved it. From the way that the top lane seams in to the backstretch, to the way, and I always think this is funny about this track, whenever they redid it in 1997, I think the guy that was driving the pavement truck was maybe not in the soberest of moods, because when they paved the bottom lane, it's like he went down in the corner and he went, and it does all these like kicks to it. So it's not a, Nate, maybe, is this the right word, concentric lane? It's that was my chance. So it's not a perfectly done lane like in a radius, and because it has all those little kicks to it, I mean it's like riding a bull in the race car. You get right down on that edge and it kicks you back and forth, and it makes for great racing because it makes the cars just a real bear to drive, and makes the setup really hard for the crew chiefs as well. But that'd be extremely hard to duplicate when you repave it, and among other features of bumps and, like I said, transitions. And, it's been my experience when we just try to repave a track that those things always get missed. They always get left out. Michigan's a perfect example of that. Michigan, before it was repaved, was just a phenomenal multi-groove racetrack that you could run the top, the bottom, and the middle. And now we've been there for almost half a dozen years since it's been repaved, and we're stuck in one lane still. And that just shows that the technology that was used in that day and time for paving the tracks whether it be the equipment or the aggregates and so forth. We can't seem to get back to it. That's another one of the challenges as well. So there's a whole list of challenges that make it much more complicated than just simply repaving the track. I don't know if I articulated all of them well, but
We'll go over here to the right to Nate, then Reed.
Nate Ryan, NBC Sports, OSS, Office of Strategic Services.
so I got it right.
I can't confirm that one. Yeah.
All right.
So the EFI data that they're making available now, you've been pretty outspoken on that, so has Kyle Busch. I guess 2 questions, Brad. Like, one, your team wasn't scraping that from what I understand. Have you guys developed a process for it? Are you going to be using it today? Are you going to see it? And 2, do you think it'll have an impact here on this race?
I don't know. That's one of the wild cards of this weekend, to Jeff's point. I don't know the quality that we're going to receive from that. There's a really, really technical, complicated discussion that goes with it. In theory, I'm against it. In practice, perhaps different, and I haven't seen it in practice. So I kind of want to see it in practice. And without having a full answer to that, I don't feel like it's fair for me to say. My intuition says that in theory it'll work, in practice it won't. So I really would like to get through a couple of weekends of seeing it, because at this point in time, the little bit of access I've had to it, which has been minimal at best, says that it's probably not going to work in practice, and we won't have to worry about it. It's kind of a non-story, but I could be completely wrong. So I really want to see it in a working environment rather than an engineering lab.
We'll stay right here in the middle to Reed and then Jerry.
Reed Spencer, NASCAR Wire Service. I've got a Bristol question for you. You've got 2 wins there. Seem to run there.
What track was this?
Bristol.
Bristol, yes, sir.
Seem to run there pretty well, pretty much all the time consistently. How long did it take you to get the hang of that place, and why does it seem to suit you so well?
I love Bristol. I loved it a lot before they ground the top lane. I kind of really loathed that part, but looking back at Bristol, Bristol is one of those tracks I came into as a rookie, 2007, 2008. It was reconfigured at that point in time, so I feel like from an experience standpoint, I was kind of on even keel to all the other drivers. And it's a track that just embraced the challenge. I like the challenge. I like tracks like that are just completely in your face track, right? That challenges you by yourself, let alone around other cars. And I took a lot of pride in going there and running well. Along with that, our team, Paul Wolf specifically, developed some really great setups and cars to run there. Unfortunately, when the track got ground in 2012, we had just won 2 or 3 races there, and we just never really caught on to it when they ground the track. So that was really a bummer. Hopefully we'll figure it back out. We've got a couple of decent finishes there since then, but also a lot of bad finishes. So it's a track that's kind of been hit or miss for us. It was kind of a guaranteed go-to and run well track for us for probably 2 or 3 years, and then it's been changed a couple times, and we haven't caught on to it as well. So now it's kind of turned into a wild card track for us, but we still are very proud of the success we've had there.
We'll go to the left to Jerry, then Christian, then finish up with Jeff.
Jerry Jordan, Kicking the Tires.net, PRN. Okay, so you like the old Bristol, you love this track. Next week we go to Atlanta, to Vegas from here.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that and your expectations going out to the West Coast?
Yeah. Well, Vegas has been a good track for us. We've won 2 of the last 3. 2 of the last, what did we win there? 14 and 16. So 2 of the last 4. Probably should have won there, last year and had a part failure, leading in the last few laps. So I think there's a little bit of redemption we're looking for going back there. We tested there this past January and learned a few things that hopefully we can apply this weekend and that weekend as well. So I think we're pretty optimistic going into that race. It's a track that's been good for us, obviously, with the success, and gives us good confidence.
We'll go to the back right to Christian, then finish up with Jeff.
Christian Coley, frontstretch.com and the Motorsports News Source. Brad, last year there was a lot of speeding penalties. Can you elaborate on what you kind of felt would caused that last year, and what maybe can fix that this year?
I didn't have one here last year, but there are, this is a really tough pit road. It's bumpy, kind of like the racetrack, which makes it to where the in-car telemetry really struggles to give great feedback, great data. And if you're pushing at the limit and you lose your dash, it's very difficult and very easy to go over the speed. Very difficult to monitor, but very easy to go over the speed limit. I would imagine that played a pretty heavy factor in it. It's just one of those tracks that I feel like when you come to, you have to be pretty conservative as a driver to avoid a speeding penalty.
Let's finish up right here in the middle with Jeff Gluck.
I guess after the wreck last week, you and Chase weren't happy with each other, or he wasn't happy with you, or I don't know who wasn't happy with who, but did you have to do any damage control in the aftermath of that situation?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't know. We'll probably figure it out here in the next few weeks.
Brad, thank you for joining us today.
No
Good
problem.
luck this weekend.
Thanks, Jeff.